Blast Word, the ideal movie to show a build word, was given to me when I arrived. It was a good script, by the way, but they took some raves, so the story is all right. Fans have been listening to the murmurs of a silent conflict between two of the biggest stars in action film, Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme, for decades. However, the reality of their antagonism remained hidden behind red carpets and gossip. Van Damme has now at last come forward to share his perspective. And it's more messier than anyone anticipated, we assure you. It's more than just a celebrity feud. It tells the tale of two macho dudes from Hollywood and their brutal legacy. Why is Van Damme speaking now, and what actually transpired behind the scenes? Come along as we explore this revelation specifics. The infamous standoff and party that revealed everything. Action movie careers weren't based on Oscar nominations during the heyday of the late 1980s and early 1990s. They were made by reputation, sweat, and fire. Furthermore, Reputation was more than just movie office performance. It was about who could kick faster, flex most forcefully, and throw down off camera if necessary. In the era of the alpha male clash, celebrities like Van Damme, Stallone, and Schwarzenegger were more than just performers. They were divine beings. For a generation of VHS enthusiasts, their characters permeated everyday life. You were marketing supremacy rather than merely tickets. But even imaginary confrontations become frighteningly real when domination is the currency. However, it started with words, interviews, and subtle jabs rather than fists. That's how things became a disaster. It wasn't Stallone's mansion that caused the tension. Long ago, it had been smoldering. Steven Seagal had begun making headlines in interviews by disparaging his fellow action actors in the months before the memorable party. When asked about Jean-Claude Van Damme in an interview, Seagal responded, "I just promised all my mentors I was going to be a good boy." He went all out when pressed to elaborate, saying, "I think that's a matter of opinion." No matter where he went, he was a champion. It's not that I'm being catty. I hope the man does well. However, a great number of people claim it is untrue. The news of the statements quickly reached Van Damme. Fans interpreted it as a direct attack on Van Damme's legitimacy, and the martial arts community was taken aback. Van Damme, who is well known for his tournament record and real-life combat experience, probably heard about it even though he didn't reply right away. Therefore, it wasn't simply awkward when the two men ended up sharing a roof at Sylvester Stallone's party in Beverly Hills. It was unavoidable. Both Van Damme and Seagal were at the height of their career in 1997 when the Stallone Mansion showdown took place. Sylvester Stallone made the decision to use his Beverly Hills house for one of his renownedly extravagant parties. It ought to have been another heavenly night filled with glitter. According to reports, the Big Bash was packed with well-known people, such as Madonna, Don Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Bruce Willis, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. However, it was Seagal and Van Damme who took center stage when they faced off. Word got around that Seagal had once more disparaged Van Damme, this time in front of the guests, labeling him a phony fighter who was only good on TV and couldn't actually throw down. Van Damme took action after hearing about it. According to some accounts, he challenged Seagal to settle the dispute immediately after marching straight up to him in the center of the gathering. No cameras, no choreography, just man-to-man. According to Stallone, Van Damme offered Seagal outside into my backyard during a party at my house in Miami in 1997 because he was sick of Seagal saying he could kick his ass. After Seagal excused himself and walked out, a drunk Van Damme found him at a nightclub and extended another invitation. But again, he said Seagal said, Van Damme was too strong and performed a Houdini before departing. Seagal had no interest in it. Let's be clear now. This wasn't just shenanigans driven by testosterone. This was a personal matter for Van Damme. Despite winning European competitions and years of training in karate, kickboxing, and ballet-level discipline, he has been criticized both publicly and privately of not being a true martial artist. It was an extreme affront to be made fun of by someone like Seagal, whose martial arts background has long been questioned. And it was the silence, not just the call-out, that made the occasion memorable. Seagal's resistance to collapse was more powerful than any blow. For many, that was when Steven Seagal's myth began to fall apart. Furthermore, it was more than a one-time party insult. Long before that fateful night, Steven Seagal had been making fun of others. He expressed his opinions rather clearly in previous interviews, asking directly, "Do I think Jean-Claude is a tough guy, martial artist?" He isn't a martial artist, in my opinion. It was not a whispered private remark. It was made public, which fueled a covert effort to undermine Van Damme's authority. It was more than impolite to Van Damme, a skilled kickboxer who had developed his physique into a deadly machine and won actual fights in Europe. It was outright defamation. It wasn't vanity, then, when he approached Seagal at Stallone's party and challenged him to a fight. It was protecting his honor from a man who had been talking slick for years and wasn't prepared to support it. The alleged Stallone party standoff was so culturally explosive because of this. Van Damme took the initiative. Seagal took a step back. Their roles were reversed as a result. On and off screen, Van Damme emerged as a true martial arts hero. A Seagal? He became more talk than action, and he began to resemble a myth. On his reality TV program, Steven Seagal, Lawman, which ran from 2009 to 2014, Seagal was asked about the event. When asked if he got into a fight with Van Damme, he said, "No. Squeezing an ant would be analogous to that. If he sees me, he runs." But his reputation had already been smeared and in a genre built entirely on action. That kind of damage wasn't just personal. It was professional suicide. And if you think it all boiled over suddenly, think again. The big screen battle that never was. After the party standoff, the feud didn't just fade. It hardened into a quiet Cold War that played out behind closed doors, in boardrooms, and on casting couches. Industry insiders say the beef was also stoked by studio politics. Both men were gunning for the same roles, the same fan base, and the same slice of the action market pie. And neither wanted to share the spotlight. Producers would often fan the flames by comparing their box office numbers or asking what if we cast both in one film. That hypothetical always hit a nerve, and the tension only grew from there. You'd think a moment like that would turn into pure box office gold, right? Van Damme against Seagal. The movie. Studio execs certainly thought so. But there's more. The buzz was real because Van Damme later revealed that he was approached multiple times by major studios to co-star in a film opposite Seagal. It wasn't just a rumor. It was on the table. But every time the script got close to reality, one person pumped the brakes. Steven Seagal. Jean-Claude Van Damme recently opened up about what really went down behind the scenes when producers tried to orchestrate the ultimate martial arts movie, Showdown. They were having an idea to have a fight between me and Steven at the Mirage in Las Vegas, Van Damme told the outlet. $20 million each. He didn't take the fight. It would have been the ultimate showdown. Two titans on screen in a battle of martial arts styles and movie muscle. But it never happened. Why? According to Van Damme, it wasn't the script. It wasn't money. It was Seagal. But not only did he turn down the opportunity, Van Damme implied that Seagal had a personal policy. He wouldn't appear in any film where he had to fight Van Damme, much less lose to him on screen. Industry insiders have long whispered that Seagal had clauses in his contracts preventing his characters from taking a clear loss in a fight, which would have made a believable, balanced face-off with Van Damme nearly impossible. But the producers weren't trying to embarrass anyone. They even suggested carefully choreographing the scenes so both stars would come out looking strong. Equal wins. Equal punches. Equal glory. Still, Seagal refused. It wasn't just about a fight. It was about presence, credibility, and legacy. Van Damme didn't just see it as Seagal dodging a role. He saw it as Seagal dodging the truth. Let's be real. In terms of pure athleticism, Van Damme is hard to compete with. The man's flexibility, physicality, and control are next level. All factors considered, Jean-Claude Van Damme might come out victorious if the stars were to fight. The first indication is the fear factor. Stories of their encounters suggest that the latter fears the former. Stallone appeared to think so too. Since courage is a major aspect of any martial arts fight, anyone who feels intimidated by the opponent is likely to lose. Fans knew it, directors knew it, and apparently, Seagal knew it too. Even better, Van Damme had a clear plan for winning the fight. If him and I fight, I run faster than him, much faster. I would run away. He's going to try to catch me. He's going to get out of shape. I come back and fight. Do you like the technique? So rather than risk getting overshadowed, he ghosted the idea completely. However, it wasn't just Van Damme who was subjected to Seagal's unbridled assertions. Early in the 1990s, Seagal's ego was essentially a separate being. According to Black Belt magazine, he publicly challenged martial artists to fight him to the death. Hollywood posturing wasn't the only thing involved. It was so extravagant that martial arts icon Bob Wall, who gained notoriety for his on-screen battles with Bruce Lee, gathered a group of 12 fighters, known as the Dirty Dozen, who were prepared to accept. The standoff, predictably, never came to pass. The sheer haughtiness of it all, though. It just confirmed what insiders had been saying for years when they faced actual boxers with decades of experience. Seagal and Van Damme weren't the only rivals. He had a tendency to speak boldly and then subtly retreat when things became too personal. Fame had already inflated his ego, which seemed to require continual stimulation from movie parts, martial arts legends, or carefully averted confrontations. Action movie legends might have been created if the long-teased confrontation had truly taken place, whether in a dojo, a ring, or even the marble-tiled garden of Stallone's Beverly Hills estate. Think about it. With his six-pack sculpted by Muay Thai discipline, Jean-Claude Van Damme used to light up movie theaters all over the world with his trademark helicopter kicks. The man had been trained in Shotokan karate, had 5 European kickboxing titles, was a great fighter, and had been put through the paces of combat. And it wasn't simply ego that followed. It was a decades-long Cold War, sabotage, and silence. Cold shoulder, smear campaigns, and sabotage. Now, you could assume that this fight was merely about squandered opportunities and hurt egos. But it went deeper, Van Damme said. Much more profound. Although Van Damme has never mentioned specific individuals in public, he has alluded to a pattern of sabotage during his ascent in Hollywood. He has made references to roles that suddenly fell out of his grasp in a number of interviews. Van Damme expressed his annoyance at Steven Seagal's tendency to sidestep conflict and write him off in the media, even if he didn't blame him explicitly. He recounted in one interview that Seagal said, kid stuff, when he turned down a high-profile fight offer. He stopped short, but I'm not sure why he doesn't say positive things about me. It is obvious that Seagal is being held solely responsible for any professional setbacks. Someone who refused to confront Van Damme directly, whether on or off screen, made him feel devalued. What's the actual kicker? In a sea of actors posing as warriors, Seagal seemingly positioned himself as the real martial artist. Additionally, Van Damme saw it as a personal betrayal in addition to a professional one. The man who had the opportunity to be a well-respected peer instead decided to compete in private, using words rather than fists. Jean-Claude Van Damme kept quiet about the Seagal standoff for years. Until recently, he let the silence to speak for itself as media outlets heated the pot and supporters raged. Van Damme finally broke his poker face in a rare interview, addressing the moment that has plagued every action fanatic since the 1990s. When Seagal puffed up his chest and vanished from Stallone's house that evening, Van Damme remarked, "I waited for 2 hours, but he never came." There was a quiet assurance that struck more forcefully than any flying kick, without any bluster or trash talk. Van Damme even alluded to disappointment when he claimed that, although he had previously appreciated Seagal's early work, he was unable to comprehend the ego. "When I saw his debut film, I thought, this guy is going to make it. He has a lot of charisma." Then, Van Damme makes the kill with a backhander. Despite his advanced years of obesity, he still speaks in a Steven Seagal style. The myth suddenly came to an end, not with fists, but with facts. Van Damme never cared about the rivalry or the glory. Respect was at issue. After decades of silence, he concluded it with the poise that demonstrates why his supporters continue to support him, not just because he is a skilled boxer, but also because he knows when to strike and when to remain strong and let the facts do the talking. Even though both guys were well known during the height of action filmmaking, their trajectories could not have been more different. One clung to a collapsing throne, while the other leaned toward innovation. In the late 2000s, Jean-Claude Van Damme made a stunning and elegant comeback to the public eye by redefining himself in the highly acclaimed film JCVD, a raw, self-aware meta-performance that both reviewers and fans referred to as the comeback no one saw coming. With cheeky cameos and viral advertisements like the well-known Volvo Epic Split, he leaned into comedy and demonstrated that he could be respected even when he laughed at himself. Steven Seagal, meanwhile, slipped farther into the darkness. His movies grew more and more low-budget, frequently eschewing cinemas entirely in favor of the murky world of direct-to-DVD distribution. The headlines did more harm. Seagal was embroiled in a number of scandals, from claims of sexual misconduct to strange political connections, such as obtaining Russian citizenship and befriending Vladimir Putin. There is no more obvious contrast. Van Damme's humor and humility helped him become a cult legend. On the other side, Seagal's own controversies and myth-making caused him to decline. And this gives Van Damme's closing remarks a powerful sting. While his opponent bowed out in a cloud of shame and denial, he remained in the ring with dignity. What does that leave us with then? Will there be a truce soon? A surprising collaboration? A quiet embrace from an elderly man at the next reunion in Hollywood? Not at all. However, the feud has never been just a personality conflict. In a cruel industry where image is crucial, it's a battle of heritage, identity, and control. While Seagal supposedly battled in the background, Van Damme fought for his job in the open. The fans are now able to see the whole picture when Van Damme drew down the curtain. Ultimately, the Van Damme-Seagal rivalry evolved beyond a simple ego conflict. It became a representation of a whole Hollywood era. It wasn't simply about who could give the most bone-crunching line or throw the higher kick. It focused on perception, persona, and the ways in which two very different individuals dealt with masculinity, celebrity, and martial arts glory. Jean-Claude Van Damme left behind a legacy based on humility, athleticism, and atonement. He was prepared to make light of himself, adapt to the circumstances, and re-establish a genuine connection with his supporters. It wasn't studio support that propelled his comeback. It was driven by a sincere affection for his work, self-awareness, and nostalgia. Meanwhile, Steven Seagal continues to be a more mysterious person. Others have questioned his boldness and increasingly strange professional choices, while others have praised him for his early work and Aikido training. His legacy grew more complex even though he never publicly made amends with Van Damme. Perhaps the lyrical irony is in that. Although the altercation never took place, the consequences left both men permanently changed. Although fans continued to argue over who would have prevailed, it is evident that the true triumph was determined by each star's decision to change or remain the same in the next years. The quarrel is no longer as much a live rivalry as it is a pop culture icon that is mentioned in interviews, made fun of online, and remembered as one of the biggest what-ifs in action movie history. For many years, it has captivated and delighted both fans and the media. In strong rivalry, whether genuine or imagined, has been fanned by stories and anecdotes of their alleged run-ins and verbal insults. The legend around what might have been one of the most spectacular fights in martial arts and celebrity history was only deepened by Van Damme's most recent disclosures. It's the type of Hollywood suspense that endures because of what nearly happened rather than what actually occurred. Who knows what will happen next? Will Seagal answer? Will he double down, deflect, or deny? Will he say nothing? I hope this storm, like many others, passes. In any case, one thing is for sure. Van Damme just took the first serious hit in the fight for honesty. Who, then, actually prevailed? The one who vanished into his own legend or the one who continued to fight? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. For more, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Additionally, click the next video that appears on your screen. You'll like it.